All right, this is the third episode of Talk About It Tuesday podcast, brought to you by yours truly, Ashley Morgan, the founder and president of Recycle to Riches. It's February 23rd at 11 p.m. and we will be talking about fair trade in all areas of your company, what a sustainable product model should look like, and what an intersectional environmentalism really means in a workplace, with an amazing girl boss panel of sustainable educators from Gypsy Freedom, KOOSHOO, Pela, and Le Prix. Without further ado, let's talk about it, people. And I want the panelists to introduce themselves so that the recording can show their faces. I think that's important, so you can associate their company with their faces. Without further ado, we'll move on to Rachel.
Hi there, I'm Rachel Evans. I'm the co-founder, creative director, and product designer for KOOSHOO. KOOSHOO is an ethical and green hair accessories company. So we're all about creating small changes to create big impact. So something like a small hair tie, you might think is like something you would never consider could make an environmental impact in the world. Yet there's like busloads of waste when it comes to a simple accessory like that every day in the US. So for us, it's all about bringing in green, ethical materials and fabrics and just making a small impact. That's us. Who's next? Is it Kate?
Kate, you can go. It kind of switched up the order. So Kate, you can.
No worries. Yeah, thanks for having us on. I'm so excited to chat with all of the ladies here today. So I'm with Pela. So we are best known for our biodegradable foam cases, is how we first started a few years ago. Currently to date, we have a wide variety of products and companies that range from an animal product with Barksby, Bath and Body Works with Habitat. Everyday Eco is a little news tip that we give every week to our subscribers, and then another new exciting launch that we have coming up in the next few days.
So exciting. Emily, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Emily Urkel. I am the co-founder and CMO of Le Prix. Le Prix is the largest platform for businesses to sell and source pre-owned luxury. So you can think of us as a two-sided marketplace for two marketplaces, actually. So on one side, we have leprix.com, where we actually are consumer facing and we connect the best vintage and consignment stores online. Think of your Decades of LA, Michaels of New York. They sell all online on leprix.com. And then we also have a wholesale platform where we are the first and largest wholesale platform connecting retailers to source pre-owned authentic luxury. You can think of us as like the fair of vintage. So we're really touching all parts of the circular economy.
Love it, love it. Sarisa, would you like to go?
Hi there, I am Sarisa Richardson, the owner of Gypsy Freedom. I am a sustainable fashion boutique. So I carry women's clothing and accessories from everything from very large sustainable fashion brands like Tom Lay and Half United to even smaller boutique sustainable fashion brands. My whole entire goal with Gypsy Freedom is helping women to identify and shop their values. I do that online at shopgypsyfreedom.com and via my brick and mortar location in upstate New York.
So as you can see, we have an amazing panel here, and I'm so excited to hop right into it. So let's jump right in. In all your expert opinions, what makes a sustainable business sustainable? And I'm going to add to that, what makes it ethical as well? And whoever, let's just chat about it. Whoever wants to hop in.
Yeah, so this is Sarisa, and I think I'll start. For me, it's always goes back to values, you know. So it's for me, when I'm looking for sustainable retailers and what I'm calling a sustainable or ethical retailer, I go right back to that company's values. Even the founders themselves and their values and how they are living those values through their companies. So it could be, that they are choosing to focus on being eco-friendly. Or it could be that they are choosing to focus on being socially aware and socially conscious and raising awareness to certain social standards. And then as far as ethical, for me, I think that all goes back to being humane and fair. So that, that should be a part of their values if they're calling themselves an ethical brand in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. I agree. And it's sustainability is a very personal thing, I feel like. But anyone else want to hop in on that question?
Sure. So one of the parts of your question that I thought was interesting was you said sustainable, ethical business, sustainable. So how do you sustain a sustainable business? I think we're all here because we're all going after a cause that's, obviously lessening our impact on the world. For us, because we're all, LaPree is all about supporting businesses, especially small businesses, to sell and consign vintage or source vintage. We really want our whole company to believe in that. And so that it goes beyond just writing down a mission, it goes to executing it. And it really goes down to your core belief of like how our business impacts the environment and that every decision made in our company has this in mind. So really like making sure our team feels as if they are business owners of of their own business of LaPree and feel like they can live this mission themselves. I actually didn't say our mission, but our mission is obviously helping support businesses sell and source vintage. That's helping small businesses and also with the sustainable factor. So we really try to like encourage our team members to feel like they're, business owners themselves. And so that they think about our mission statement as with every decision they make. And with that, I feel like then it can, then the mission lives longer and it's becoming a sustainable business that's sustainable.
I love that, Emily, because we follow something similar at Pela about acting like it's your own business. And we say that a lot. And a lot of times that's hard to understand for companies that work with more rigid type of structures. But I think it works across sustainable businesses or any businesses that you ask your employees to treat their job like it's their business. And so you'll often hear us saying in meetings or when it comes to decision making, if you're the business of design, because you're the designer, what decision would you make here? Everything from costs, spending to, any contracts that you're signing. So it puts a little bit of accountability on the employee or the person with your company to think as though it was their own. And our values, similar to how Sarisa said, that's what really dictates your decision making, are so integrated into our everyday decisions. And a lot of times I think with sustainable businesses, entrepreneurs or whoever's running it assumes that the weight's all on their shoulders to apply those values, or they only apply creativity if they're in a creative department, when in reality, you can apply those values across any department. So our values are creativity, consciousness, courage, and community. And it's not just the creative department's job to be creative, and it's not just the CEO's job to be courageous. It's, you could have courage by sitting in a meeting and saying, I don't like that idea. I think it's stupid, or I think that it doesn't apply to sustainability in the way that we're claiming it does. So having those core values and then putting that accountability back on every team member, I think is really what the long-term success difference makes.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone else want to pop in? Rachel, you want to say anything on that one?
Sure. Looking at it from, it's so great to hear everyone's voice on this. Coming from a more product design place, for me, like a sustainable business is really thinking about when everything you create in this world, right, is more stuff. And we don't need more stuff. We need more solutions and things that are actually going to help us be better, do better, and not create more waste. So for me, when it comes to product design, it's about really solving solutions better than anyone else can. So we're not creating more disposable waste. And then also looking at the materials that go into them. So from them being organically grown, from them being fair traded, all the way through to how they're going to go back into the earth and what that looks like, and encouraging your customer to really look at the products when they pick them up. Read the ingredient deck, just like if you're going to read the ingredients in a grocery store, the food you eat, pick up your clothing and look at what's gone into it. To the details, any certifications, is it organic, is it naturally made, will it biodegrade, and just educating customers. To me, sustainable business is about looking at how you can make the smallest impact and make the most positive effect in the same time. Yeah.
I love that. And you're also coming from the production side, which is really important for any conversation about sustainable business, because that's half the battle. And so we can go into that. Actually, the next question, can you break down, or any of you panelists break down, the circular production process in a sustainable business kind of versus the typical production process that we see in the linear system?
Yeah, I can definitely speak to that. At Pela, we do manufacture all of our products, so we are definitely on the page one of our products, what needs to happen. And there's a few points that makes our business successful in a sustainable way compared to maybe a more traditional production process. The first for us is obviously a renewable resource. Our products are biodegradable, so that's a little bit different than a lot of other sustainable alternatives that can happen further along, an industry, whether it's through recycling or reusing. We really start at ground one, where we say we don't want any waste to even be created that's not renewable. So the first is the materials. Using renewable resources is the number one of that circular production process. And then whether, that's not always possible depending on what area you're developing products for. So something that is an alternative to that, and something that we also even use, because we know not everybody has access to compostable environments, which is what our product ends up doing, is a take back program. So that's something that I think is really important to make change in the current economy of product development. It would be a perfect world if we all knew how to use this technology to make products that just disappear back into the earth eventually. But, we've learned obviously that you can't apply that to every single thing. Our technology has its certain applications where it works great, and then other ways where it's just not feasible or it's not possible right now with the current infrastructure that exists for renewable resources. So the take back of your product, we do that with our 360 program. If somebody doesn't have access to an industrial compost or an environment where they know how to get rid of the case, we'll take it back and we'll deal with it. We've even started challenging our customers to send us back our competitors' plastic, because we believe everybody should clean up the mess that they make, and they're not taking accountability. So we're kind of poking at them and saying, well, fine, we will for the time being, but we're going to expose the problem that you're creating. So the take back, I think, is if you don't know how to make a sustainable product, you don't know how to make glassware, eyewear, whatever it is you make disappear, well, then be accountable and be willing to take back what you've created for your consumers when they're done it. You want there to be an end of life on your product because you want to sell more. And that's okay. That's allowed. That's how you also are financially responsible, to make sure you have a proper business model, but be responsible in having a program where you can take those back. And then how are you going to re-enter those into the economy? What are you going to do with that take back eventually? So those are the two pillars that I think are really key in that sustainable circular production.
Right, exactly. And if you can just picture a circle in your head, we don't want anything produced that isn't being used again or able to stay in the system of production or just our consumption in general. So just to kind of simplify everything, all those words, you want to picture a circle for production and consuming. And that is kind of where it comes from, that circular production process that we're all talking about. And then the latter side of that is what we have now, which is the linear economy, which we don't like. It's not good. We don't like that. The reason why is because if you picture a line, linear, it drops off somewhere, can't end. It has an end to it, right? The Earth's not flat. So why do we have a flat production process? It should be circular like our Earth and work with it. So this is kind of where the topics are going to go and what we're talking about today. Anyone else want to join in on that question? I know, I talked a lot. Sorry about that. I'll let the panel
Yeah,
talk.
Yeah.
no problem. I mean, for us at Lapri, because we touch both the consumer side and the business side with Lapri.com, selling to consumers, and with our wholesale platform, helping businesses source, we are very much in the circular process for luxury resale. So if you think about it, when a customer buys a bag, whether they buy it pre-owned, hopefully, or they buy a new bag, they can always sell it to a business who then lists on Lapri.com to sell to the next customer. Or they can actually sell it to another resale business that, let's say, sells it to, using our wholesale platform, lists it on a wholesale platform, so sells it to another business that sells it to a customer. And so instead of actually producing anything, we're just recycling things over and over again in different ways. And so, by doing this, for the example I use with a handbag, we can extend the life of a handbag by at least 5 years. And that's kind of how Lapri fits in the circular model, and it's something that we're very passionate about.
I see your hand, Rachel, if you want to go.
Oh, it's just so great hearing all the different ways that we're tackling a circular process, like full life of a product, and it's just really, really inspiring to see all the different angles that it can be taken.
Yeah, that's why I love these talks, because you can just really see the positive actions that are taking place in our world. And sometimes it can get a little gloomy doomy while we're learning all about the environment, but there's actions being taken, and I think that's why we need to talk about it. Charisse, do you have something?
Yeah, I mean, so even as a retailer, so this is really difficult, I think, for retailers to jump in on and find solutions for. So what I've tried to do is start very small at just reducing disposable items. So when you think about, as a retailer, I'm just gonna, for lack of better words, the trash that we create would be packaging. You think about all of the packaging involved with the consumer process. So bags, boxes, if you ship things. So considering boxes versus mailers. Currently, Gypsy Freedom is not the only retailer that does this. Many others, sustainable focused ones and brands are partnering with groups like Eco and Clothes and No Issue to package their online items that are ordered with compostable mailers, as well as compostable tissue paper and things like that. And we do that at Gypsy Freedom as well. So I think, one thing that I'm always challenging people who are a little further down the value stream, I'm challenging you to not use that as a cop-out. Like, even as a retailer, I don't have ownership of how these items are produced, but I have ownership as to who I source for them, who I put in our retail store. And so when I meet with brands, I want to learn, like, how are you packaging these things? How are you tackling the trash that we create, in this industry? And then I'm even trickling it down to myself and my own business to figure out how we can reduce that in our own business model. So I think, I love that we on this call are talking about how everywhere throughout this value stream, throughout this circle, Ashley, which you've so beautifully visually given to us, there are ways to reduce and have an impact along this entire circle.
Yeah, 100%. I love this panel, guys. If I can't say that enough. This is just such a beautiful network. Thank you for joining us. Let's hop on over to the next question. So if there were 3 core business actions that business owners could take to, know about intersectional environmentalism and really get this into their corporation, what actions should we be taking here? I know this is a new topic for people. I myself learned about this topic just in 2020, honestly, to be quite blunt with you guys. And I've been really incorporating it into my business model. And I just want to know some core actions that we could be taking.
Ashley, this is Sarisa. Why don't we first start talking about this concept of intersectional environmentalism? Like, what does it, I think, mean to each of us? What does it mean to you when you say that? And then, like, what actions we as business owners what actions we take and what actions we encourage others to take. Because I agree with you. It is a very new concept, and it's sort of like sustainability. Like, all of these terms are becoming, unfortunately, these buzzwords in the industry. And so they're not very well defined, and that's fine. It's okay. Everyone has their own definition for it. But I think it's great. You know, it's a great opportunity for us to what is our definition of it. So Ashley, here, why don't you've opened up the question, so why don't you introduce the definition for us?
Yeah.
For us to answer.
So my definition of this is always constantly fighting the fact that low communities that don't make a lot of money have been subject to environmental racism, okay? Where they actually are not treated well. Their environment around them, their ecosystem, is contaminated. They're next to dumps. They actually are placed next to these really bad conditions. And for me as a company, if I can start taking in these communities and working actually in these communities that are next to the dumps, next to the manufacturing companies that produce, you know, smog and particulate matter and have really bad outdoor air pollution around them, if I can go in there and transform their environment by planting trees, by having a garden, by doing community outreaching, by giving away food there, by doing anything I can in those particular areas where I see that is happening, that's what I want to do for my organization, for Recycle to Riches. And that's how I define it for me. And it's just with my own research, and we're still learning about it. And this is something that we do on Recycle to Riches. We have on our transparency page, we have definitions where you can, if you guys are joining, you could just pop it on mute if you guys are joining. I don't know who's joining, but pop it on mute and then we'll be able to see the panelists speaking. So for me, I really think that if I can integrate this into my company, that can make a change. But again, on Recycle to Riches, on the transparency page, we have definitions of all of these buzzwords, right? And we're going to add intersectional racism and intersectional environmentalism in that very shortly, but I need a good grasp on it before I actually put a definition out there to the world, because they're defined by me personally. And it says that on the site. It's like, this is defined by our owner, not, you know, it's just what I've learned personally by my journey. So yeah, that's my take on it. If anyone has, you know, more to join in on and add on.
So this is Sarisa again, and I think, Ashley, that was a great summary. So to answer your original question, what do I think 3 core actions companies should take or businesses should take? I'll start with one. It's owning and having and honoring that this exists. Right. And then going deeper than that. It's not enough to just honor. You have to certainly act to drive change. Right. So many of the sustainable fashion brands that we carry are doing this very well. Tom Lay, Laud the Label. Half United are three that that I carry at Gypsy Freedom that I actually learn a lot from in terms of how they are honoring the makers, honoring the environments that they are placed in, and then also using their business to incorporate ways to make the environment that they are currently in better. In terms of environmental racism and exploiting the low-cost countries that we operate in, that's just capitalism. And the only way we will figure out how to get rid of that is if we demand it. So it really, yes, businesses have to incorporate, different ways to do things differently, but we as consumers really do need to start demanding this. And we can no longer blame the consumers for this problem. I mean, I'm sorry, not the consumers, blame the makers and the businesses for this problem. We really do, as consumers, have to take ownership that we contribute to the system. The more that we consume these things that we claim that we don't value, So there's my take on it. I'll let other people speak.
No, I love that. I love that because a lot of times we all tiptoe around this subject of like, is it consumer? Is it the producer? I believe it's a lot of both, but we're not going to convince the people that are making billions to stop making billions. We're just not going to do that. So, but we can convince and talk about and bring up the subject to consumers, and they can adopt that mentality and really request it. So that's why I do say we're not all trying to put pressure on you, the consumer. Keep in mind, us as business owners, we're consumers as well. So we have to think consciously on what we're doing and how we're consuming. And so it's not just consumer and it's not just the corporation, but if we can convince the consumer to start thinking about this and we can get the seed in their head, then that's a huge step. So we're not putting pressure on the consumer, but we are kind of nudging them along to think about this and be conscious about this. Right?
I have just one more point on that.
Oh, go ahead. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, I was just going to say the pressure on the consumer, if we can flip it on its head and say, because the consumer is so powerful, that their share of wallet and how they spend their money, the almighty dollar, they basically have a choice of how they want to spend their money and what these corporations do. So when I think of like, for us in particular, we think of like fast fashion or just fashion in general and how it exploits cheap labor that impacts like the most marginalized communities in the world. Like, that cute and trendy shirt you just picked up at wherever fast fashion shop was probably produced by labor that wasn't properly paid. And when we toss it, it goes to a landfill that, if you're listening to this podcast, is probably not next to you. By shifting the consumer spend to something more sustainable, we really empower the consumer. So from like a business owner standpoint, like what does that mean? I think like to what Sarisa just said, like continue to learn and grow. Like I really encourage my team to just have kind of a growth mindset. Like I didn't know what intersectional environmentalism was like 6 months ago. I had to Google it. And that's okay. Like we should constantly be learning because the impact of making sure like what we do and how we change the world for the better is so important, and everything we do has a trickle down effect.
Yeah, exactly. Rachel, did you want to say something?
I think when I first looked at this, when I first looked at this question, and we're thinking, it was like, what should business owners know about this? So 3 things I was thinking about was, I don't like to make this a blanket statement, but it will be more expensive. So if you want to pay fair wages and use organic materials that are not covered in pesticides, polluting water, poisoning the people that are applying them, it's going to be more expensive. So from the very beginning of your business, you need to be looking at the market. Can the market handle a more expensive product? How are you going to communicate the value in that product? And then it's really important, the integrity. So you need people to know about that. For us, we use certifications, just so that people can really believe what you're saying. And then when you go shopping, you automatically know what you're looking for. So we do our best right now. We're using fair trade cotton and fair trade cut and sew facilities. And then we use Forest Stewardship Council for our natural tree rubber, for the elastic, make sure there's no deforestation. So I think wherever you can have a supporting body to certify you, you're also supporting that whole industry of accountability and transparency, so that you're actually just helping the whole industry become just a cleaner place to do business. So there's those two things. And then another third thing for businesses to know about when you're working in this area is you get to work with great people. If this is something you're passionate about, you get to work with people that are like-minded. So maybe you're paying more, things like this, but you get to have an amazing work experience supporting people right from the very beginning, planting that seed of your product all the way through to the very end step of it. So it's a really cool environment to be working in general.
Kate?
Yeah, I think those are all such great views on intersectional environmentalism. But what always amazes me when we discuss this topic now, because it is quite popular and quite new for everyone, is the different views on it. Is, you know, Sarisa has an amazing opinion. Emily, like me, is just discovering this and not even understanding what the definition really is. So when this really came to light for our company at Pela, it was the, you know, same time everyone last year really was exposed to it. We really wanted to define it. That was our first reaction. It was like, how does this fit into our values? How do we create a policy around this? How do we like tell people how to act? And that was a really humbling moment, because we quickly realized that there is no one definition of this, and we don't know enough about everything going on in this topic. So the best version that we were able to create for ourselves to understand, especially coming from our world where we think we're sane, we think we're Mother Teresa because we're protecting the planet, and like, how dare we get questioned about something else? A lot of times you have to set your ego aside and say like, okay, there's other problems we also have to be looking at. So for us, the way I simplify it, in the, you know, going back to how you simplify your decisions based on your values, and every company you have, is that we are in business to protect the planet and to protect the people on the planet. And sometimes that looks like offering them an alternative to plastic or recycling. And other times it looks like giving them access to those, you know, areas that they can recycle in, giving them education that they don't already receive. And maybe they have other people who are kind of burdened by this, have other problems that need to be solved before recycling. So it's hard for us to ask a community or a person who's living maybe like in poverty due to racism, due to poor working conditions, to now prioritize recycling, as that is their first thing they need to care about. Well, no, feeding their family is going to be the first thing they care about. So that was a real parallel that we had to come to, that like one is not more important than the other. And so protecting the people and the planet really shifted for us when we took on that perspective. We stepped back, that it's not just the planet. And even before that, I'm sure we've made at our company insensitive comments and, you know, positions that we've taken because it sounded kitschy to be, you know, all for the planet and only for the planet. So that was really important for us to step back. And the second point to not knowing anything about it is that in a world where it's embarrassing to be uneducated, or we are worried about saying that we don't know something, we took that as an audience, a chance, to set our egos aside and ask our audience and people who are affected by this area, how do we fix this? What do you need from us? We don't know. And so I think that is the number one thing that helped us really feel a little bit more confident, or a little bit more progressive towards this area, is just asking our audience, asking like key members of these communities, what can we do to help? Like, what is it that we're not doing correctly? And it was a complete educational moment for everyone, from our customer service team to our CEO to our executive team. Everyone in the company was suddenly like, you know, realizing a lot more that you don't know what you don't know. So I think never being afraid to ask, and anyone that we asked about this was never offended or, you know, annoyed by that. They were actually really eager to help us understand. And through that, we've had amazing partnerships and collaborations created that we never would have been able to open ourselves to beforehand.
Yeah, definitely. So basically 3 goals: know what it is, define it for yourself, take action upon it, don't just know about it, and talk about it, make it known to other people. I think that is a really good action plan for businesses, for sure. Let's hop on over to the next question. So when you guys, what are some good trends in sustainability or the sustainable business models that we see going on? Let's, lighten the subject and help our viewers get excited about the future.
So this is Sarisa. I'll jump and start. I am really excited about the secondhand trend. That's just booming right now. I know that might sound crazy as a retailer. My job is to sell new things, but maybe that isn't. Maybe that is literally flipping, consumerism, retailism on its head, so I'm really loving this new trend of secondhand. We are at Gypsy Freedom. I'm actually hosting a local swap and shop where the goal is literally to shop your girlfriend's closets, and I'm loving this idea of like bringing vintage back, and making it cool to go into Goodwill, like not putting this social stigma on it, because decades ago there was a social stigma attached with shopping at Goodwill and Salvation Army and things like that. So I'm loving this whole new secondhand trend.
Can I make a suggestion? And I think it goes back to the words we use, because I love the whole secondhand thing. And see, I even say it. I think it's very helpful as far as the stigma is, instead of using secondhand, that maybe we can use pre-owned or pre-loved, because ultimately it's secondhand, and it has this thing that it's like secondhand goods that are not as good, and I think the more we can create that mindset that buying something that's pre-owned is just as good or just as valuable, because ultimately it comes back to value and the value that we create, because the intrinsic value of things may it's like a Gautier shirt and H&M shirt. The intrinsic value of the fabric and whatever may be the same, but it's the value we create. And I think the more we can create that, where we're putting love into the objects, as opposed to just not good enough, because then people are always going to want to go for the new, because secondhand is not good enough.
Yeah, very good point.
Yeah, and vintage is interesting, but it's like vintage has an old kind of quality to it, but now vintage is desirable.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think also as far as trends that I'm noticing is people being a lot more thoughtful about, or at least asking the questions. So the fact that now this is something that is happening at a larger scale, whereas 2005, 2006, 2007, it was the tree huggers, and it's like it was very much of a side thing, whereas now it's the major brands are talking about it. So it's great that it's a general issue.
Yeah, for sure. Let's ask the next question, and panelists, if you guys want to be the ones speaking right now, you can hop in, and then guests, if you're just chatting with us, please keep your thing on mute, and then we can ask questions in the chat, and then I'll ask the questions for the panelists. So let's hop to the next question. So when you guys are describing a sustainable business, what are like the top 5 words or even actions that come to mind?
I'll start.
So
Yeah, for top 5 words, for me, for sustainable business would be thoughtful, mission driven. Okay, that's 2 words, but mission driven, impactful, green, and global. I think those are things that every sustainable business can do very successfully.
Nice. I'll jump in. I have 6, but we've got accountability, integrity, education, care for both people, environment, and every stakeholder involved, empowerment, and dedication.
Yeah, for me, this is Teresa again. I'm always back to values. Definitely has to be a part of whatever definition anyone's including when they call themselves sustainable. I think conscious, humane, and I also include environment in there in some way.
Mine are going to be quite repetitive from our values before, but for us, it's about being courageous, being creative, being conscious, being community driven. And then the last one that I like to always put on is the word perfect with a line drawn through it, and rather progress being the next one, because I think we kill ourselves sometimes before we bring something to market or even present an idea because it's not perfect, but that is how we're going to solve the issue of sustainability and a lot of other topics that we're talking about today is the progress we're making on it. So those are my 5.
Beautiful. Yeah, those are really good. I want to say the next question, because this kind of can wrap into everything. I know we talked about some certificates Rachel mentioned, but what are some sustainable certificates or certifications out there that businesses should achieve to get or strive to get to define their sustainable goals and what they're doing?
I can pop on from Pela. There's definitely a large amount of certifications that are offered for us for application on a weekly basis, and we ourselves are confused by it. And that is my one complaint about this industry, is that it is the most confusing industry that I've ever looked into with sustainability. You really don't know what you're supposed to be doing, who you're supposed to be listening to. And even as consumers, I know they're confused too. So for ourselves who work and breathe this everyday industry, if we're confused, imagine how a consumer feels when they go to buy one thing in a variety assortment of what you're offering. So there's a wide variety of certifications that we participate in, from packaging, down to charitable groups that we work with. But the one that I'm going to suggest with any sustainable business, and if you have to do one, this is the only one I would push you towards, is a certified B Corp. So I'm not sure if the other panelists are familiar, if their businesses are associated as well, but not only does it measure your sustainability in terms of environmental effect, but it also looks at, what are your HR practices like? What's your diversity like within your company? How do you incorporate your community? How do you educate, and how do you share what you're developing? So although we call ourselves, planet focused first, it really helps you incorporate the people portion of the business that we really weren't experts on before. So B Corp, I could not praise it enough. Not only is it, I think, a great standard that when I see a business have B Corp, I will participate with them from our business side and I will support them personally. It's also an amazing community, and B Corp is one of the best organizations that I found that offer different incentives. They offer different programs. They help you develop your business. So they really are that complete toolkit for somebody who's starting in this area and not knowing all of the topics they want to address.
Ashley, so I love hearing about B Corp. That's definitely one of the big ones on our list that we would like to get certified for this year, with all the other certifications that there are. So to do with there's certifying your business as a corporation, but then there's also all the certifications that go into the making of a product that you sell. So for us, I'm not sure what would be the most helpful here. Ashley, do you think, like, to explain all the certifications that we try to go for and why they're important to us, or what simple certifications a customer can look for? What angle do you think would be the most helpful for the viewers?
The ones you have and worked for. The ones you would.
Yeah, okay. So for us, from the beginning of our company, we've been manufacturing for 10 years. For us, originally it was local, and we knew local would be really important because then we could be there and see for ourselves what's happening in our cut and sews. Our goal was always to be fair trade. Originally, we actually manufactured in Los Angeles as well, and we still do a little bit. But right now we work with a fair trade facility out of southern India, which we're super happy about. It took a long time for us to find that partner. But it's great, as in, so what with fair trade right now, they actually certify the cotton. So the cotton itself means that the farmers growing it the water is treated, there's no pesticides, they're being fairly paid, and that cotton then goes into a fair trade cut and sew facility. So to be a fair trade cut and sew facility, you can only have fair trade materials going through that manufacturer. So that's one thing that I think is really easy for people to find. Fair trade certification has been around forever. You know, it's this little symbol here with the little hand. So that's a great one, really easy. For textiles, if you're in the textile industry, GOTS, G-O-T-S, Global Organic Textile Standard, that's a great one for all materials to make sure they're actually organic. So it's going to look after the water and the people using and planting those crops. For anything to do with paper, so for packaging, for shipping, if it's made in North America, it's quite easy to get it, but FSC, so Forest Stewardship Council, so making sure there's no deforestation happening. For us, it actually comes all the way down to the actual rubber, which is inside of our elastic for the stretch. So that's really important because there's a lot of materials being used there, but even your packaging, right? So when you're buying packaging of a product, look on the back and just make sure that it's responsibly, like if it's a recycled paper. It's about really looking at a product, and if it's not saying something, it means it's not important to the company, right? If something's important, they're going to tell you and educate you on that. When it comes to dyeing, Ecotex, which is it's OEKOTEX. So that's a type of dye that's going to keep all the water treatments, treats the water, make sure it's drinkable water at the end. So it's a great thing to look for when you're going onto a company and searching what they do. And then other ones, there's SEDEX, which is for your whole company corporation. There's also 1% for the planet, which is a nice one to always find, along with B Corp, which is fantastic. So that's kind of the ones that we look for and work with.
Yeah, and those are the buzzing ones around right now. So if you hear those, those are the certifications that if you're starting a business, those are kind of things you want to bring on and strive for. Now, it's challenging. These certificates are hard to get, as you know, Rachel and Kate, you know, anyone else that has tried to get one, they know. But some fun things I just want to let you know as a company, some fun, easy things you can start doing to offset, you know, your emissions is take on one tree or 1%, like Kate or Rachel mentioned. 1%, one tree, these are all organizations that can help offset your company's carbon footprint. They'll plant a tree for you or they give back in some way. And you can put that certificate or that logo on your, you know, website and say, this product plants a tree. And that's one way to really help your sustainable business model. That's just my personal suggestion that we took on a few years back, and we really appreciated it. Because again, we as a nonprofit can't get those certificates. So, I mean, we can certify people, but we can't get those certificates. So it's like, just because we don't have them doesn't mean we're not doing these things, right? So you can still do the background check on companies and find out that everything on their site is what it is, you know, is what they say they're doing is what they're doing, okay? So, and you can tell sustainable products when they get to you. Zero waste packaging, probably from Eco Enclose, maybe Books Box, things like this. These are all buzzwords. These are all sustainable things to be looking for and use. let's hop over to the next question. Or did you have one?
No, so this is Teresa. I did have just a brief comment about that. And Rachel, that was an excellent rundown of all of the certs and that well-known certs that are out there. And I agree with Kate. It's confusing, and for consumers, it's also frustrating because it's like, oh, it's not like the days of eating clean when that was a buzzword and everyone was able to like say that they're eating clean and it was easy to sort of look at ingredients and things. It's difficult because like you mentioned, Ashley, these certifications are difficult to get. They're challenging to get, and it's also expensive to get. So it's a little off-putting for people that are companies that are early on in their journey, saying that their goal is to be a sustainable brand. To prioritize getting these certifications. So it gives that added pressure on a consumer to then research these brands and things like that. So I'm, always as a retailer challenging the ownership that we give to brands. Yes, we need more brands to be doing this. We absolutely do. We also need more retailers to be carrying these brands and carrying the brands that may not yet be certified so that we can provide more options for consumers who do not have the time or education or consciousness to be turning over and looking at the inside of their tags, which we hopefully want to normalize that behavior. But it's not there yet. So, we really do also have to be just challenging the entire system, right? Because consumers, they're going to do what's easy. We are going to do what's easy, right? So we have to make it easier on these folks.
Oh yeah, 100%. Teresa, you are so spot on with that. And that is where it comes in, is us as the boutique owners, brand owners. Let's try to define it. Let's try to make it more simple for people to understand, right? And I think you do the same with Gypsy Freedom, where you kind of do a nice life cycle analysis on the company before you take them on. And we do the same in Recycle to Riches. And I think this is a popular thing that boutique owners are doing now. They want to know, what the heck am I carrying? They don't want to just go on a website and shop and have it delivered and get relabeled in downtown. They don't want that anymore. They want to know that somebody invested in this actual item, and they want to curate. They're curating even more now, meaning they're searching and studying the brands they're carrying. So that's why I appreciate you as a brand owner and you as a boutique owner, because you're doing the fight that not every boutique owner wants to do. So congratulations on that one.
Girl, and especially not now.
Yeah, no, never. Definitely not. But you're doing it and we're doing it, and that's the fight. It's coming around 12 and we want to wrap up around 12. So let me, I think this is a big one that I want to talk about. And we kind of were talking a little bit. What about a boutique sustainable business model? And I think, Teresa, you are perfect to jump in on this and talk a little bit about when we talk about a sustainable business model, it kind of feels more like production. And I feel like the boutiques feel left out. So let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah. So retail boutique owners, I think a sustainable business model has to, one, go to your values. Like, what are you focused on? So at Gypsy Freedom, my sole focus is empowering women to shop their values. So I want to help you identify what that is. So whether it's I'm vegan, and I really want to support brands that are not using animal-based products, or I really care about brands that are empowering women throughout their entire system. So our value for Gypsy Freedom is identifying those values for you, helping you identify them, and then aligning you with those brands that are aligned with those values, right? So I would say as a boutique to develop your sustainable business model as a boutique owner, you have to first determine what that is. What is your values? What is the message? And then that literally, just like Kate had mentioned earlier, you have to live that throughout the entire life cycle of your brand. So for me, if I am aligning you with your values, my personal value is to have a very low impact on our environment. So then down the life cycle of my brand, it's very important for me to use environmentally friendly materials and to have majority of the products in our retail shop. Not all of them are environmentally friendly, because I carry brands that may have more of a focus of social consciousness, but majority of them, because that is a personal value to me, will have natural based materials as a part of their fibers. So I always go back to your values, especially as a business owner, and how you incorporate that throughout the life cycle of your business.
Anyone else want to pop in on that one of the panelists? I can opt in the next question. You just said it all, so we didn't have anything else to say. It was just boom, drop the mic, we're done. Really good. Thank you so much for summing that up for us. One question that I like to ask all of the speakers that I bring on to talk about it Tuesday is, do you think a zero waste lifestyle is truly possible? Now, this is you can personal answer it. We're not going to judge you on your answer, okay? It's okay. We know it's a personal question and answer. I just ask it so that we can get a good reality on this zero waste buzzword.
So this is Teresa, and I'm happy to start again. I have this conversation a lot with many different people. I do not think it's possible. We as human beings, we die, we create waste, right? Death in itself is a waste, right? So it's more to me about low waste, right? Low waste. We want to create as little of it as possible. And then when we create waste, what do we do with it? Like, can we, like you had mentioned, this circle, how do we close the circle and offset, some of the waste that we're creating? So instead of creating waste that there is no way to get rid of it, there is no way to recycle it or reuse it, how can we create more of the waste that's reusable, recycled, that can live in this circular form that we're trying to create?
Yeah, very much so. I just want to say one thing. We do die, we do create waste, but if we didn't have the system that we have, I know this is morbid, but if we didn't have the system we had of the bodies going into a casket, we would go right back into the earth and give right back like we should be. So yes, we create waste just by being here, but I think solutions will come so a zero waste lifestyle could be possible. I agree with you, Sarisa, that right now it might not be possible with the things we have in place. And that's where our government comes in. That's where new systems come in. And yeah, it's a long journey. So anyone else want to pop in on that one?
Yeah, I think for us at Pela and personally, I often question, what is a zero waste lifestyle? I work in this industry and live and breathe everything sustainability. And I don't think I fully know what that even means. So that definition is personal to each person. The idea of progress over perfection is what I keep pushing. We started our company in a very niche area where we were, the sustainable heroes, and we would talk as though people were living this lifestyle that we were, pushing, which at the end of the day, we had a real moment where we sat back and said, listen, like even us as employees know that we don't live this extreme eco lifestyle because it's not really tangible or like easily achievable right now. So that's the first thing, is what does zero waste lifestyle mean for you? Don't kill yourself over it, because progress is the enemy, or perfection is the enemy of progress. We want to make sure that we're progressing, and that's all that matters. And then lastly, I think it's really important to make sure that we're encouraging that innovation with mistakes. We're encouraging that, like, when we first came out with our vision line with sunglasses and blue light reading glasses, they weren't perfect. And we had a moment where we sat back and said, we only produce biodegradable products. How could we ever put this into our market? But realizing that we were going to miss an opportunity, we were going to, not test it. And we did. We ultimately came forward with something that wasn't perfect, and we were so afraid it would hurt our brand. But in the end, our community embraced us, and they said, like, that's great. Like, we said, here's what we're trying, and we're going to try to do better next time. So happy to report that, like, our line, which we're doing another launch on March 11th for Pela Vision, is completely landfill biodegradable now. And so that attitude of not being worried about making mistakes is what's going to get you closer to that lifestyle. Same way when people are into yoga or meditation, they don't spend like a weekend at a yoga meditation conference and say, oh, thank goodness I'm fixed now, I am a yogi and my life is now sound. It's an everyday choice. So I think I would like to eliminate this whole like goal of a zero waste lifestyle, because it's daunting and it's intimidating. And once you start to claim that, you're going to get questioned on everything else you do, from, your carbon footprint to any other area that you should be acting more sustainable in. So let's not compare ourselves to that, because it's not realistic.
Yeah, 100%.
That was awesome. Just to add on to that, yeah, I really love the progress over perfection, and something that I think about myself a lot. It's about the direction and not the destination. So whenever, because I do the product design, and it can always be better, but that's the thing. It's the direction. We're constantly trying to make it better. So if you just waited for the perfect thing, you wouldn't have a better solution in the market at all. So you just have to keep going forward. And for us, it's really important when it comes to zero waste lifestyle is not to cloak it in guilt or judgment. So, it's about just doing your best and knowing that that's what, just to be conscious whenever there is, look for choices, wherever there's a choice, try and make the best option for everyone involved, the triple bottom line. So yeah, I just try to keep it simple and try to make it positive, a positive, uplifting. It's about, everyone winning here. So make it a joyful experience and share your tips and tricks with people along the way.
Yeah, and don't be so hard on yourself. If you're doing something to be a conscious consumer, you're doing something good. Emily, you wanna?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think what everyone has said has been spot on. Progress. It's the small things for us. It was, yeah, we are part of that circular economy, that handbag that's pre-owned, that gets sold to a store, there's no production on our side, but there's the shipping. And so there's like that carbon footprint of it being shipped from Europe to New York or New York to LA. And so for us, it came down to ops actually. And like, how do we simplify our carbon footprint by maybe we ship things together in bulk, and if it saves things, or, instead of connecting suppliers and buyers from all across the world, which we do, like, how do we locally connect them too? Kind of like like Cerisa's swap, like a swap event, but for buyers and suppliers in the local area. And so like really thinking about how not only our product impacts, but how do we get our product from buyer or supplier to buyer, or, store to buyer. So
Yeah, it's really thinking about the whole life cycle and trying to keep that as low waste, we'll use that, as possible, or low carbon emissions. I'll give you a little tip, Emily. You should check out Sendle. If all of you should check out Sendle if you haven't used it yet. It's a shipping organization. They're a company. They offset their shipping. So they plant trees, they do whatever their community says their outreach should be for that month or for that year or the quarter. So they take the funds and they offset their shipment. So whatever their shipping carbon footprint is, they make sure they plant that many trees or put that many wells into a, you know, location or whatever they do, whatever the project is, they make sure the shipping offsets the good deeds. So that's one way. So what they're doing offsets your shipping.
That's amazing. I'll look into it.
We had a live with them on our Instagram if you want to check it out. And that honestly concludes. And this was, I could talk about this for days. I could just stay on this panel, especially with this amazing panel. But we're going to wrap it up, make it a nice hour and 5 minutes long, with you guys just letting us, our community, know where we could connect with your organizations and how we can stay connected with you guys. Rachel, I see your little square first, if you want to go.
So you find us our online, where it's just www.kooshoo.com. That's KOOSHOO.com. Feeling KOOSHOO on Facebook and Instagram. And yeah, we've got a new site being launched in the next 3 months. So it'll be fun to share that with you then.
Kate, I see you next.
Absolutely. So I've spoken about a ton of companies that we have in our overarching umbrella, but Pela.earth is the home base for all, where you'll see all of your tech needs that are biodegradable, and then work through all of the other companies that we have that basically produce everyday products without everyday waste.
Beautiful. Sarisa, you want to go?
Yes, so Gypsy Freedom, you can shop with us online at shopgypsyfreedom.com. And please follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Shop Gypsy Freedom. And on the third Thursday of every month, I have a really fun sip and shop that you can join. I'm live on Instagram and Facebook, and typically I have a brand highlight with one of my brands and typically the founders there as well. I see Ashley throwing up thumbs, which means you probably joined our last one. We just had a recent one. So it's super fun. Pull up a cocktail and join me live on Instagram and Facebook at Shop Gypsy Freedom.
Yeah, my drink of choice is kombucha, hard kombucha, while I shop with Gypsy Freedom. Yeah, it was so fun. I popped in and then I had to go to O2 show, but it was just so much fun. Good job on that. So yeah, definitely join that if you can. And Emily, I just want to let you know, thank you so much for joining both of our panels that we had. Is so nice to have you on both, and you have such a beautiful mind. So let us know where we can connect with you, Emily.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here. So you can find us at leprix.com, LEPRIX.com. And that's if you want to shop pre-loved, pre-owned, vintage, designer, luxury pieces. And if you're a business looking to source, you can find us at wholesale.leprix.com. So just the word wholesale.leprix.com. We're also on Instagram and Facebook at leprix, just leprix, at leprix.
Oh my gosh, you guys, this has been such a beautiful panel. I can't even express it enough. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your organizations and the shares that you sent out. This is going to be such great information for the community, and that's what we're here for on Talk About It Tuesday. This is the third episode. And this was a special Girl Boss panel with extraordinary panelists. So thank you for joining. Thanks for listening. And hopefully you got to see the live. If not, it will be on YouTube to check it out. Thank you so much and have a beautiful